Eight and a Half is a part of European art cinema, which is basically a movement in which a bunch of film directors said "fuck you" to the conventional rules of Hollywood cinema and decided to do their own thing. This makes films like Eight and a Half some of the best and most creative you'll see, but also some of the most confusing. The first time I watched this film, I was falling asleep because I had no idea what was happening. The film would cut from one place to another with seemingly no continuity or explanations, and it's essentially up to the viewer to separate dreams and fantasies from reality. After a second watch, however, everything started to make sense, and it quickly became one of my favorite films of all time. With this video, I hope to clear things up for those still unsure about Eight and a Half, and explain why it truly is the best film you've never seen. In a very meta way, Eight and a Half is a film about the making of the film you're currently watching. The film follows Guido, a movie director who has the idea to make an art film, but who is pressured by critics to make a more safe and conventional film about a spaceship saving humanity from a nuclear apocalypse. This was clearly a jab at Hollywood cinema and is still relevant today, as movie executives often brush aside art films in favor of big franchise films with room for sequels and merchandise. Throughout the film, Guido struggles with wanting to make a movie piecing together the regrets and guilts of his life, but doesn't know how to begin. He has managers and actors constantly asking him for more information, and critics telling him his every idea is terrible. The plot is obviously symbolic of Federico Fellini's own struggles and the challenges every artist faces. His creative vision is constantly threatened by executives telling him it won't sell, popes telling him it's against God, and critics telling him it's no good. But the film he ends up making touches upon escapism, creative burnout, religious guilt, and life itself in a way no other film has before or since. Fellini puts himself up for judgment in the most human way possible, as a flawed individual trying to improve. Right from the opening scene, Guido is trying to escape from the suffocating, burning box that he is confined to. He tries hardest of all to fly away from all responsibility, but is literally pulled back down into reality, where the movie business never sleeps and has followed him to his hotel, where he is constantly demanded of. This sudden cut between dreams and reality is what you have to get used to when watching art films. It's pretty obvious here in the beginning because Guido literally wakes up from a dream, but later on the film will just cut between scenes with no indication of whether they're dreams, fantasies, flashbacks, or reality. It's up to the viewer to make that call. During the next scene in the garden, we get introduced to two key plot points. One being the aforementioned critic who thinks Guido's abstract film idea is terrible, and the other is the girl at the springs. Described as an offer of purity and warmth to the protagonist, his salvation, a new chance at life and love that he pushes away because he no longer knows how to love. She appears multiple times throughout the film as a promise of escape that is never embraced because Guido is too far gone into his own life to give it up now. From here begins the cheating plotline, which we might as well trace back to Guido's childhood. His Catholic upbringing had essentially separated women into two categories: the wives and mothers who act as caretakers, and the sinful women you have sex with. When Guido imagines all the women in his life in a sort of harem, they're split into caretakers like his wife and sexual fantasies that originated from Saragina, his first lustful temptation that was denounced and damned by the church. This upbringing, coupled with the existing cheating culture present in filmmaking, doesn't excuse Guido's cheating, but it does serve to explain it. Remember that 8.5 is basically an admission of guilt and regret, and Guido's fantasies about women serving him aren't meant to be celebrated, but critiqued and re-examined as something he's ashamed of at the end of the movie. Guido's essentially learning to tell the truth, be ashamed of the truth, take responsibility for the truth, and work to change himself for the better until the truth is something he's happy with. As the film progresses, Guido struggles with the movie business and his love life starts spiraling out of control until they reach a climactic peak in the final sequence. Just before it begins, we're treated to a bleak and dark near end, where Guido's wife has left him and he's decided to abandon his film. But just before he can make that decision, he's once again snatched by the movie executives and brought to a cocktail party full of reporters anxious to interrogate him. Things start once again tilting towards the fantastical and absurd as Guido hides under the table and shoots himself. It's left unclear whether this actually happened and whether it's actually a dream altogether. Afterwards, the Hollywood-approved sci-fi movie is cancelled, much to the delight of the critic, who monologues about his job to destroy all the unimportant works of art that don't deserve to be made. All the while, Guido begins to realize the truth. He feels he's been set free, and remembers how to love. To love is to accept one another as they are with all of their flaws, and be honest about your own flaws. Only together can you heal the flaws of the other and make separate parts whole again. Guido realizes that life is a celebration and he wants to live it with Luisa. The circus starts playing music and a new production begins, the official production of what would become 8.5.